The ending of Onyx Storm explained. Hi guys, it's Eve. Welcome back to my channel. So, still feels weird to actually have this in my hands, to finally have this out in the world and we're actually able to read it. It's insane. We've all been waiting so long for it and I have finished reading it. I finished it about a week ago, so I've had a full week to properly marinate in it, unpick my thoughts, to go through it and to really digest what on earth happened at the end of the book, because boy oh boy, Rebecca Yarros knows how to end a book and she knows how to leave us on a cliffhanger. I thought she'd sort of exhausted all different types of cliffhangers, but no, she still managed to deliver us something new, something equally as jaw-dropping. I'm gonna have a whole different video where I give a full review of the book. Spoiler alert, I loved it. But basically the purpose of this video is I wanted to really unpick the ending. The last few chapters really are just a whirlwind. There's so much to go through. There's so many theories. There's so many questions and uncertainties about what on earth is happening at the end. So I want to unpick it, go through what's happening and also go through some of my theories about, for some of the things that we don't know for sure what's happening, I've got some theories. I'm gonna get straight into it. If you're new here guys, make sure you're subscribed, have notifications on so you don't miss future videos because I'm gonna be doing so many theory videos from this. Let's just get started and let's unpick the ending of Onyx Storm. At the end of the book, we have a few different point of views. We have little chapters where it suddenly says who it is. We have a chapter in Rhiannon's point of view, a chapter in Imogen's point of view, a chapter in Zaden's point of view. All of these are going to be there for a reason. Now I'm going to go straight into Zaden's chapter because that's what we're all wanting to know more about. Zaden channels. He channels more. And I remember whilst reading Onyx Storm, I was thinking, why do I feel like this book's just going to end basically exactly the same as Iron Flame? I was a bit worried that we were going to get quite a similar style ending where it's, oh look, he's channeled. Like Iron Flame ended on Zaden channeling and the oh my god. And I felt like we're just going to get the same, him channeling more, becoming more venin, which would have maybe felt a bit too similar to Iron Flame. But we got that and more. So he channels. He channeled from the ground and then he hears Violet calling out to him because earlier when in Violet's chapter, we see that she sees the shadows around him and she sees how powerful it is and she realises the only way Zaden could have created this power is by channeling. So she has this realisation of, oh, Zaden's channelled. So she reaches out to him through the bond saying, I love you, come back to me, like come out of the ice, that metaphor he was using of the ice about sort of losing control. She reaches out to him. He hears that. Whilst he's channeling, he hears that and that is what pulls him out before it's too late. He's really close. When he's channeling from the ground, he's really close to basically giving up every part of his soul, to completely giving himself away and giving into the power of the ground. He gives up a lot of his soul, but he hears Violet saying, I love you, and he stops. That pulls him out and basically he says that bit of his soul that belongs to her, that's what's left basically. She saves one part of his soul. Violet has saved a bit of his soul, so he's not completely gone. He will be inevitably a bit different now. He's venin, he's a higher level of venin, but he's not completely gone. He still has a bit of his humanity, a bit of himself, albeit not much. It wouldn't take much now for that bit to go. If he channels any more, he'll lose himself completely. So the fact he has this one bit of his soul, this is promising because it's like, okay, well, there's still some of him to save. There's still a bit of him left to save. But I think here, I think Zaden's going to be different now. There was a mention where Theophany says to Violet, venin don't love in the same way. They can't love. So I think that there is going to be a bit of a battle here coming up in the next books where Zaden potentially isn't going to be able to love in the same way, or he basically might have these like two personalities, like the venin in him and then that one bit of his soul, and that there's going to be this battle of maybe Violet can bring out the him part and he's like, yes, I love you, but when she's not there and not reminding him of like her, that he basically doesn't feel love, he's basically lost himself. So I think there will be that sort of, there'll be a visible change in him, like we've seen in Onyx Storm. See, when he gets angry, he basically goes ice cold, you know, doesn't even recognise Violet's there. He gets like basically someone else in those little moments when he gets angry. I think we're going to have more of those moments and it'll be more regular and bigger. We'll basically see more venin Zaden than normal Zaden, whereas in Onyx Storm it was like 70% if not 80% was proper Zaden and then the other 20-30% was venin Zaden. I think it's going to be basically like the opposite. 80% from now on will be venin Zaden, 20-30% will be like nice Zaden that we know. Yes, I think we're definitely going to see a change in him now because he's only got one bit of his soul left. He'll only now be himself when he's with Violet, when Violet's there to remind him. That soul basically is reliant on her. He'll only get that bit of his soul out and he'll only be himself when Violet's there. It's like reliant on her. Zaden is more venin. Sgaeyl says like your eyes, your veins are like her lightning. So he's basically fully venin. He's no longer just initiate. He's like going to have gone further in that journey, and yeah, he is going to be basically majority venin. Then we have this really interesting reference happening, and this is one of the biggest what's happening, where Zaden says about he has a new brother. He looks over to his new brother. The initial thought here is that, oh my God, is this Zaden's long lost brother? What's he talking about? But what we think is actually being referenced here is that you might remember that earlier on in the book, Theophany says brother, and what she's actually referring to is Jack Barlow. Jack Barlow is not, as far as we're aware, is not actually Theophany's brother, but they basically venin refer to other venin as brothers. Maven sages refer to their initiates, people that they mentor, as sons and daughters, as they're like children. Because Panchek says to Berwin about, I can get you to your son. And here we're thinking like he's saying, I can get you Jack Barlow. Jack Barlow's his son. So basically venin refer to each other in very like familial ways. Venin refer to other venin as brothers, and when there's a bit of like a level difference there, it can even be son, daughter. So when he says my new brother, because also the word of new, so this is why I don't even just think it's that he's now been reunited with his brother, because that wouldn't be new. He wouldn't have just had a brother that's just been born, but here new brother is someone that's turned venin. And this is reinforced by the fact that Zaden says, he says, I glance past Berwin, past Sgaeyl and the venin, to my new brother and the unconscious dragon lying in the valley. So that brother, if he's next to a dragon, it's clearly a rider. How could he do this? Choose this after watching me stumble and fall over the last 5 months. How could he willingly walk the path I fought like hell to leave? He's the last person I ever would have expected to turn, and yet here we are. So this is, he's literally saying here, my new brother, because venin refers to each other as brothers. Zaden is now basically fully venin, and his new brother is someone else that's venin. We know it's a rider because he's next to a dragon, and also he's watched me stumble and fall over the last 5 months. The path he's been trying to leave is this path of being venin. He's been trying to find a cure to not be venin anymore. And we know, therefore, if it's someone that's known this for the last 5 months, it's someone that's known Zaden has been venin since the start, since December. Literally last person I'd have expected to turn. So someone that we know, a rider, someone in Zaden and Violet's circle, has turned, has become venin. So who is it? The assumption that a lot of people are having is that it's either Bodhi or Garrick. Part of this is because what goes on to happen, that we will unpick more, but we know at the end that Zaden and Violet marry. A lot of people that therefore think that it's Bodhi that's changed. There is a really strong sort of theory around that and evidence for that, in the sense that that would explain why Zaden has married Violet so hastily, so quickly, because he's now venin, so he can't rule Tairn, and he was training at Bodhi to rule. So if he's now suddenly going to Violet and, trying to get and marrying her so that she can rule Tairn, that's why a lot of people are thinking it's Bodhi, because why would he do that but he can't rule and now Bodhi can't rule. So if Bodhi's turned venin, then he's like, right, I can't rule, Bodhi's venin, so he can't rule, and now Tyrandor's going to get handed over to someone random, but that can't happen, so I'm going to marry Violet, so it will go to her. Now that is very strong reasoning as to why it could be Bodhi. Also, there is a scene in one of the other point of views, someone mentions that they see Bodhi on all fours retching. And that did make me wonder, oh my God, has he channeled? Because he's on all fours, he's literally on the ground retching. Like, has he just channeled and it's made him sick? I don't know. And literally on the floor as well. And then Zaden's there saying, like, the person who's turned unconscious, maybe Bodhi was sick and stuff and then, was passed out. I don't know. So I could see that happening, and that is a possibility. And also, at the end, we know 5 riders are missing. Zaden, Violet, who's now returned. We know Garrick is one of them. We're assuming Bodhi's the other one. The 5th one could be Imogen, and she's returned with Violet, or it could be someone else. So everyone's assuming as well that it must be Bodhi or Garrick, because it must be one of the missing riders. I don't think that, because the only people that knew from the beginning that Zaden was venin was Bodhi, Garrick, Imogen, and Violet. So it makes sense. We know it's not Violet or Imogen because they're there. So must be Bodhi or Garrick. They're missing. It all makes sense. I actually think that it is Brennan. I think Brennan is the one that greets Violet, yes. I think Miraculous has done this purposely to throw us off. We all assume that it's going to be Garrick or Bodhi because they're not there, because they're missing. But I think this is purposefully to throw us off. I think the reason they're missing is they're helping Zaden. They're helping Zaden. Garrick will be needed because he can distance wheel, so he can get to places quickly. There's these missing eggs that I mentioned that I'll go through shortly, but that I think Bodhi and Garrick are helping with. And again, this would be why then Zaden's marrying Violet, because he's like, right, I need Bodhi to help with other stuff, so he won't be able to be in Tairn or to be Duke, so that's why I've got to marry Violet. Like, Bodhi and Garrick are the only people he can not trust. He trusts Violet, but Garrick and Bodhi are probably the only people he can work with to do some certain things, because he knows he's like, Violet and him are too close, and that Violet will just be worrying about trying to cure Zaden, whereas Bodhi and Garrick will be able to get on with what's needed for like the continent and everything. So I think that's actually why Bodhi and Garrick are missing. I think they're trying to sort out other stuff, which is why Zaden's had to marry Violet. And yes, I think it's Brennan. He's the first person to greet Violet, you know, quizzing Violet and like, have you seen Zaden? Potentially because Brennan knows, Zaden knows that I've turned. What if he's told Violet? He's trying to figure out if Violet knows yet. It wouldn't necessarily be obvious to look at him yet, because if he, like with Zaden, when he first channeled, you couldn't tell. Unless he channeled, you couldn't see the redness or anything like that. So potentially it's not visibly clear in Brennan yet. He also conveniently has amber eyes, so you might not be able to tell if he's just got a little bit of redness. Anyway, so I think it's Brennan, and the reason why is I'm going to go back to that scene where Zaden is with Berwin, where Zaden says, he's talking about Berwin, saying you can't kill him, all of that, and he says how Berwin has another sibling he can use against me. And then he glances to his new brother. So the sibling he's referring to here is the new venin, the person who's turned. And here we take sibling as meaning, because venin refer to each other as brothers, as siblings. So it's assumed here, oh, by sibling he just means a new sibling, a new venin. But what if the use of the word sibling, and it is in italics, is actually he's got another one of Violet's siblings. The sages, the venin, they have literally just used Mira to lure in Violet and Zaden, to get them there, to try and get them to turn, all of that. They've just used Mira. Captured her, had a knife to her throat to lure them in. And Zaden's just said they have another sibling. Another sibling. So what if it actually means another one of Violet's siblings? The sage now has Brennan, one of Violet's siblings, to use against Zaden, because the next best thing to having Violet herself to try and control Zaden and get him to do what they want is to have someone close to Violet, aka Brennan. If they have Violet's sibling, Zaden can't do anything. If they're threatening Brennan's life, Zaden can't do anything, because that would destroy Violet. Even if Brennan's turn, like Zaden knows, I can't kill Brennan. I can't do anything to Brennan because Violet will never forgive me. Even though he's turned, if I do anything, Violet will never forgive me. That will be like the biggest betrayal. She needs to at least first see Brennan, see that he's changed with her own eyes, see him, and she needs to deal with it. That's her issue. She has to do it. Even if Zaden has all the honourable intentions for, I don't know, killing Brennan or putting him at danger, Violet would never be able to get over that. That would be a permanent thing on their relationship if he killed her brother. So I think that's what it means there. The sage has another sibling to use against him. And Theophany earlier literally says Violet is the leash for Zaden. So again, they've just tried to get Violet, to use her to bring her across, and also to try and get Zaden to turn more through Mira, through capturing her to lure them in. Like, they literally say they know they're walking into a trap. That's the thing. But they have no choice because it's Violet's sibling. She has to go and get her. Even though they know they're walking into a trap, they're using Mira to get to Violet and therefore to also get to Zaden. And now they're doing the same with another sibling, with Brennan. So that's why I really think that it is Brennan. Also because I think he has known from the start. It's not clear that he's known from the start, but we suddenly learn that he does know, and that he's known for a while. After Dana has broken the bond and Violet's like in bed, she can't get up, there's that big argument when Violet tells Mira, and she's like saying to Brennan, wait, you knew this whole time. And also when Brennan says to Violet, like, I've been trying to heal him, and Violet's like, wait, you knew he's venin, you never told me. Brennan has known. We don't know how long for. And that's actually more reason why I think like Rebecca is trying to hint at it but not make it too obvious. We know Garrick, Bodhi and Imogen have known from the start. And Brennan, we don't know how long he's known, which is why I think he has known from the start. We purposely aren't meant to know because that's going to throw us off. It's, you know, It's a really good tactic. It's uncertain how long he's known for, which means he probably has known from the start, and that's why it would be him, because it's not obvious. Violet learns that Brennan's been helping Zaden try different things to try and cure him. Zaden had confided in him, and it would make sense that he would do that, and he probably confided in Brennan straight away, because Brennan's the only healer, the closest healer, the only healer that any of them can trust, and that most of that they know. Of course, he would be probably the first person Zaden would have gone to, because if you would think if anyone could heal him, could cure him, it would be a healer, aka Brennan. So I think Zaden basically went to Brennan straight away, and so Brennan knew from the start. That's why it's a bit of a curveball there. You know, we're all assuming it's Bodhi or Garrick because they're the two of the people missing and that we know have known from the start. But I think it's actually Brennan. I think he has known from the start. That would make sense with Zaden saying, like, he's literally watched me stumble, fall. And also, the path I've been trying to lead. Yes, Bodhi and Garrick have known, but they've been more just trying to maintain him and make sure he doesn't hurt anyone. But the person who's been watching Zaden try to get off of the path and has been helping him to get off of the path is Brennan. Took him to sit at the Vale in the hatching grounds. He's been trying to heal him. He's been doing all of this stuff with him. I also actually think it's a bit odd that he didn't tell Violet he knew. Why did Brennan wait so long to tell her? Yes, okay, Zaden maybe said, like, look, don't tell her I've told you, but I don't think he would have. What if it's because Brennan is actually sort of thinking things through and thinking, because there's this theory, I'm like basically certain on, that Naolin, who we all think Brennan was in love with, turned venin. What if Brennan was like, right, Zaden's turned venin, I might be able to find Naolin. If I keep my cards close to my chest, bide my time a bit, not tell Violet, just sort of really watch Zaden, see how he behaves, all of this, I might be able to learn more about venin, find Naolin. Who knows, maybe he's always sort of thought, I want to become venin so I can be reunited with Naolin. And so he's been watching Zaden to see what it's like and to see if he could do it, how to do it, how he might be able to control it so that he could go and find Naolin. And that's why he's been a bit quiet about it and not mentioned it to Violet. I think it could make a lot of sense. And also why he seems really, obviously he seems sad that he can't heal Zaden because Zaden's his sister's, you know, love of her life. But what if because he's actually realised he can't save Naolin either? Maybe in studying Zaden, he's been trying to figure out, right, if I can save Zaden, I could go and save Naolin. And he realises he can't, and that his only option to be with Naolin is to also turn, and so he does turn. He turns so he can be reunited with Naolin. Because, yeah, there's this theory that Naolin is venin. Done a whole video on this before, so that we think Naolin, if he's a siphon and he saved Brennan, it's assumed that he basically siphoned his own power into Brennan to save him, and he gave up his life in that process. But I actually think he siphoned and channeled from the ground to save Brennan. That was the only way he could access enough power to save him, and in doing so turned venin. Brennan knew and helped him cover it up and everything, because obviously they are in love. He saved his life, and so he's trying to save him and protect him. Something as well in here that supports that near the end, when Mira is hurt and Brennan's trying to save her, and then Sloane siphons power from Dane to Brennan. And then Violet notes, oh, that's weird. Brennan has a mark on his hand from where Naolin siphoned to save him. And then Sloane's doing the same here, siphoning to save someone, and there's no marks. Leaves no marks. Why, when Naolin did it leave a mark, but when Sloane did, it didn't? It's made a note of Violet saying, that is weird. That's put there for a reason. And I think it's because the reason why it left a mark when Naolin did it, there has to be a difference in the way it was siphoned. It's because Naolin siphoned from the ground. He channeled from the ground, and that's why it left a mark on Brennan. He was saved using dark magic, so it has left a mark. That's why I think that's more evidence for Naolin is venin. Also for the fact that Tairn just completely avoids talking about it and seems to have this bitterness, this hatred towards Naolin, to be honest. And I think it's because he's a dark wielder, and why he's so incessant and hates the fact about Zaden being a dark wielder. I just think that makes so much sense. But then more reason for why I think the venin who's changed is Brennan. In Zaden's chapter, we know the sage is Berwin. A chapter or two before, Theophany calls the sage Berwin, and it says how Zaden sort of tenses. His eyes widen, he tenses in like recognition. Why is this name that's been first mentioned here sprung recognition? What was Naolin's surname? We don't know. We don't know Naolin's surname. Was it Berwin? Was Naolin's surname Berwin? This is the first time he's mentioned by name. The only other people in this scene are Violet, who wouldn't know. She doesn't know Naolin. She wouldn't know his surname. She's never met him. And Bodhi is there as well. But Bodhi's younger than Zaden. He's in the year below Violet. He would have probably never met Naolin. He has no reason to know his surname. So what if it's because that Naolin is Naolin Berwin. There'll be something there, but I think, yeah, Berwin's name's related to Naolin is Naolin, and Berwin is him. Potentially that's Naolin's surname. And so Zaden now knows that that's Naolin. The reason why he's not recognised him before, we don't know how close Zaden was to Naolin. Weren't in the same school yet, he might not know him that well. Also, he's now a fully fledged venin, so would look different, will have all these veins and everything covering up his face, so might look quite a bit different. It's plausible that Zaden wouldn't have recognised him visually, and also like he didn't know his name, and that's why here in Berwin he's like, oh my god, that is Naolin. The sage in my dreams, the sage, my mentor, is Naolin. More evidence for why I think this is the case, because in Zaden's chapter, he says, he looks at the sage and he says how the sage is a problem. Not because he's more lethal, not even because he's supposed to be dead. Who do we know of that's supposed to be dead? Naolin. Zaden's only just put the pieces together and realised that this is Naolin, which gives more reason as to why I think the venin is Brennan, because potentially Brennan was sort of fighting, saw Naolin, was like, oh my god, in the desperation to be reunited with him, because he now knows it can't be cured, because he's been trying for this long with Zaden to cure him and it's not worked. So in his desperation to be reunited, he's channeled. He's channeled, so he's venin, so he can be reunited with Naolin. And with the whole thing about sibling, it's a sibling to use against him. It all makes so much sense. That's literally just from unpacking that little bit with Zaden there about him being with the sage and about the other sibling who's turned venin. And Zaden also says in that same sort of area, I couldn't put a knife to his throat as much as I could to Violet's. So Zaden says how there's this bond between him and Berwin that's like no other, shouldn't be there, but there's this bond. They are bonded. So this makes me think their life's connected, and therefore potentially so is also Berwin and the new brother, the new person who's turned, who we think is Brennan. So maybe here Zaden saying like, well, if I kill Berwin, that's going to kill Brennan, which would destroy Violet. That would be awful. If I kill him, I'm basically then also killing Brennan, which I can't do to Violet. So he's basically saying putting a knife to Berwin's throat is basically like putting a knife to Violet's, because Violet would, again, potentially never forgive him or never come back from that. She's lost her mum, she's lost her dad, she's been disconnected from Andana, nearly just lost her sister. So now Zaden can't risk killing Berwin and therefore Brennan, and also then himself if they're bonded, because Violet would literally lose everyone. So I think that could make a lot of sense. Otherwise, why? Why would killing Berwin be the same as putting a knife to Violet's throat? That doesn't make sense. There has to be more to it, which is why I think it's because it would also kill Brennan, which would a huge betrayal to Violet. So there's so much there to unpick. So that is literally just from a few lines. From a few lines, we've gathered all of that. And there's even more, actually. There's even more. But more reason as to why I think Berwin is Naolin here is because what's interesting, so Berwin's wanting to kill dragons. And Zaden notes how this isn't usual for venin. Venin don't want to kill dragons. They want to control them. They want to take their power. They don't want to kill them. And yet here is Berwin just desiccating a dragon and then threatening to desiccate Sgaeyl. And I wonder here if it feels like there's maybe a bit more to it. And maybe it's because Berwin is actually doing this a bit out of revenge, fueled by hatred, by bitterness. Because if Berwin is Naolin, we have this theory that Tairn actually severed the bond with Naolin. So Tairn was Naolin's previous rider, and it said how their bond breaking nearly killed him. So what if, basically, Tairn and Naolin were still bonded, then as Naolin continued to channel, became more and more venin, Tairn then eventually had to sever the bond to save himself. But we know how much Tairn hates Dark Wielders, everything, and he didn't want to be bonded with the Dark Wielder, and also potentially Naolin was going to use him, steal his power, who knows? So, and it's against what the Empyrean are about. So Tairn, we all think that Tairn severed the bond, like purposefully broke the bond with Naolin, which would also explain why it nearly killed him, because the power it took to actually break the bond nearly killed him. So potentially here Berwin is quite bitter about this. He would have wanted to stay bonded with Tairn. It would have allowed him to access even more power and potentially get, an in with the Empyrean and control them and everything. And also he was bonded, so would have had an emotional attachment. And so potentially here he has this bitterness, which is why he's wanting to desiccate Sgaeyl and kill these dragons, get back at them, because he doesn't want anyone to have a dragon because he doesn't have one, but also specifically Sgaeyl, because if he could kill Sgaeyl, that could kill Tairn, or at least definitely very much upset him and hurt him, because he's killing his mate. So that could be his way at getting back at Tairn. So it would just give a bit more motive as to why he's doing this and threatening Sgaeyl and killing dragons. That would make sense. More to unpick. So yes, we have Panchek there. He's the traitor. He's the one that's been giving up information, how the venin have known where they're going to be and everything. Panchek is the traitor. He's crawling on the floor. Berwin's just killed his dragon. And we've never seen it happen this way before, them literally desiccating. I think potentially he also wants to turn. When I first read this, I thought maybe he had turned because he's like, this wasn't the deal. Like what's he going to get in return? Maybe, you know, Berwin said to him, like, you know, you can access all this power if you turn, but for me to teach you and show you how to do this, you need to deliver me Zaden. Potentially there's something there. But then something else that I think, so just before Zaden channels, when there's everything about him, my new brother, everything like that, he says that no matter what I choose, it's wrong, but only one path leaves Sgaeyl alive. So this just could be just deduction of, right, either I do something but he might kill Sgaeyl. There's a few different things. But what I actually think, I think Zaden has shortly before the battle, shortly before, been talking to Arik. So we now know that Arik, aka Cam Towery, is precog. He can see the future. And I think potentially he's confided in Zaden and they sort of work together a bit because Arik knows what needs to happen in order for everything to be the way it needs to be. Arik knows that Zaden needs to channel, that he needs to turn and become even more venin, that needs to happen because he gives Violet the dagger and says, when it goes dark, use this. The only way it was going to go dark was Zaden channeling. So that provides a bit of comfort that Zaden had to channel in order for them to survive, for Theophany to die. That had to happen, which provides me a bit of comfort of, I think there is going to be like a means to an end. There's going to be a way that we can get Zaden back because Arik has seen it. Fact just said that there's only one path that leaves Sgaeyl alive. I think, yeah, Arik has basically confided in Zaden as like, you need to do some things. Obviously, there's only so much he can get involved. So I guess if Arik told Zaden too much, it could mean that these things no longer happen or it changes the future. But potentially there are some things Arik needed to tell Zaden to make sure certain things happen. And he said, look, you need to do this. Like, he might have said to Zaden, like, you need to channel, just don't lose yourself. Like, just try not to lose yourself and we can save you, basically. Not necessarily him interfering because he can't manage that. He just has to trust that Violet's going to try and bring him out of it, which she does. Panchek's basically saying, like, to Berwin, I can reunite you with your son. Here he's talking about Jack Barlow, because venin see other venin as sons and daughters and brothers. And yes, Zaden channels, and then Violet says, I love you through the bond, and Zaden's like, no, wait. I grab for that thread with desperate hands, clawing to keep her as more of my pieces are blown away. So more of his soul are blown away, lost to the void. He's losing his soul, but he keeps that bit. I love her. That's the emotion I cling to. I know if I take it any further, that will be the next and final piece to float away. So he's got this one final piece of his soul, which is the bit of him that belongs to Violet. Then Zaden shows Sgaeyl his intentions and what he needs to do and his plan. Sgaeyl says, you cannot mean to. He says, you saw what happened, it's the only way. And she glanced over her shoulder, and you think she'll help. She loves me. Potentially, where Zaden says, you saw what happened, maybe Arik was able to sort of show Zaden the future, and Zaden shown that to Sgaeyl. So Sgaeyl, in order to get Sgaeyl to sort of go along with the plans, because she obviously hates the fact he's turning, and then potentially he has to do this to Tairn later to get him to go along with it, he's been able to sort of project his thoughts or what he's seen into there to show, like, look, this is the path that has to be taken, maybe. That might be a little bit more far-fetched. Sgaeyl's like, you cannot mean to, she loves me, Tairn does not, and you haven't looked in the mirror yet, the red veins are branching from your eyes like lightning. Zaden says she'll help. She promised, because Violet promises at the start, if you turn too much, like, I promise I'll, you know, do what's needed to. Because Zaden's like, you're the only one that can. And then Sgaeyl says, even if she agrees, no one will. And Zaden says, someone owes me a favour. I'll unpick this now. And then Sgaeyl says he'll never let you near her, especially when she lies in a vulnerable state. So they're talking about basically here, Zaden's shown his intentions to Sgaeyl that he wants to marry Violet, presumably so she can then rule Tyrandor. Also potentially marrying her might be what helps to keep that last bit of his soul intact, because that last bit of his soul is the bit that belongs to Violet. Potentially by marrying her, he's like tying their souls, which potentially means that that bit of his soul can't be lost then. That'll help him keep that bit of his soul. If he's married to her, the world's magic, there's all about these temples, everything. So I reckon by marrying her, that basically ties their soul, that last bit of his soul and her soul together, so that bit can't be lost, so there's still a chance of him being saved. He won't, even if he channels whatever, he can't lose that bit of his soul if he marries her. And also so that she can, you know, be next in line for Tairn. So I think there's a bit of a double reason for him doing that. And Sgaeyl saying, like, Tairn won't let you. Tairn, you know, especially now you're even more venin, there's no way Tairn's gonna let that happen. And then interesting, yeah, Sgaeyl says, like, we'll ask and her decision will determine our fate, potentially because it's like, well, if she won't marry you, that last bit of your soul remains vulnerable. Potentially even if that's the last bit of his soul that, like, is hers. If she was to then decline his marriage proposal, potentially it would just, that bit of his soul would, like, die. And potentially then if he channeled again, that last bit of him would be forsaken or lost, would be destroyed if he was to channel again. Whereas if he marries her, it keeps that bit of his soul alive. So even if he was to channel again potentially, then it would, if it's tied to her, there's not really much that can happen to it. There'll always be that bit of his soul left to save, which is why it'll determine our fate. Because I don't think Sgaeyl would say it's going to determine our fate if it was just the case of he's marrying her just so just there's someone to rule Tairn. Because why would that keep him and Sgaeyl alive? Which is why I think there might be more to it, and actually marrying her saves that last bit of his soul. And then also when Sgaeyl says even if she agrees no one will, I think here she's referring to no one will marry you. There won't be no one's going to agree to officiate a marriage between a venin and Violet. And Zaden says someone owes me a favour. Now who do we know that owes Zaden a favour? One of the priestesses from the Temple of June. Because Violet and Zaden, they saved the temple, they saved the priestesses, they saved them when the Wyvern and Venin nearly kill them. It was actually Leothan that saves them by firing the wards, but they saved the temple. And the priestess is like, we're in your debt basically. No favour's too big, we'll help you. And so that's what he's referring to. Someone owes me a favour, the priestess from the Temple of June will marry them. So I think then Zaden and Violet go to the temple, the priestess, the high priestess, marries them, which keeps that last bit of Zaden's soul safe, ties it to Violet, and then also gives Violet control of Tairn. Because then Violet turns up 13 hours later. Brennan comes and meets her, and Dana says, I will not let them burn you, which is interesting. I think I know what this means and I will explain shortly. And basically in these last few pages in Violet's chapter, what we learn here, Violet's been gone for hours. She doesn't know what's happened. She has no recollection of what's gone on. She's really confused. There's a celebration happening, which will be presumably people celebrating the win of the battle. Brennan comes out to greet Violet and is like, look, what's happened? Where were you? There's 4 riders and their dragons and 3 elders dead. And still have 5 riders missing. Zaden's missing, Violet's just back, and there's 3 others that are unaccounted for. And one of them we know is Lieutenant Tavis, who's Garrick. Again, this is where Brennan's like, look, I need to know, have you seen Zaden? I need to know. I think that's because Zaden knows I'm venin, he's a danger. And basically there we have images like, look at your finger, Violet, and there's a ring. Brennan opens papers that is proof of their marriage. Zaden and Violet are married, but Violet has no recollection of it. Imogen's there with her. So she was clearly with her this whole time. We've got 3 additional riders missing and 6 missing eggs. And then right at the end, Violet gets a note from Zaden that says, don't look for me, it's yours now. She turns to, because she realises she can't remember, who can remove memories? Imogen. She says to Imogen, what have you done? And Imogen says, what you asked me to. This last line here, what you asked me to. Something happened in this stretch of time that she can't remember, and Violet asked Imogen, remove my memories. So I panicked when I saw this. I was like, oh my God, Violet's got married. I thought Zaden basically married Violet without her knowing. I was like, no, this is outrageous. She deserves a lovely marriage. But the fact Imogen's like, you asked me to remove your memories. At least that's what we think she's referring to. She just know Violet was clearly on board with everything that was happening and then realised, like, I need you to erase my memory. Probably to stop her going after Zaden. She probably realised, potentially through Aric's help, maybe he helped her see what needs to happen. It was like, right, I need to not go after him. I think Zaden's got a plan. I think Bodhi and Garrick are helping him with it. That's why they're missing. They're off helping Zaden. They need Garrick because he can distance wield, and potentially need Bodhi for like blood reasons, maybe because they're related or something like that. Also, they're the only people Zaden can trust. So obviously they'll be the only people he would take with him if it's a secret mission. So I think they're off doing something, trying to save Zaden. That's part of why Zaden wanted to marry Violet, so she could rule, and also to save her soul, and also because he loves her. Because note here that Violet says the ring, she sees the stone, is a ring from the Arishian sword, Arishian dagger, which she noticed quite a while before. It was on the bedside table in a box and it was missing a gem, missing a diamond. So Zaden was planning on proposing. He already had the ring made. He was planning on proposing. But then, you know, the marriage then potentially was in the end a bit out of necessity, but he was always planning on it, which is so sweet. But yes, and then they got married. You know, Violet was clearly on board with everything that was happening. She agreed to marry him. She agreed to everything, and then saw that she needed to forget, not know where he's going, not know what the plan was, so she wouldn't go after him and potentially ruin the plan, and also potentially so that she couldn't be interrogated. So if she was interrogated and there was a truth sayer and stuff like that interrogating her, she could only tell the truth, because if she doesn't know what's happening, even if they were to look into her mind, if they were to question her with things, she can't give up any information because she doesn't know. So I think that's also a reason why she'd have forgotten her memory. Another little double meaning thing here is where Imogen says, like, I did what you asked me to. Right back at the start of the book, Violet says to Tairn, get me Imogen. Like, I need to talk to the only person I can trust, the only person who could be trusted with all the information. Get me Imogen. So potentially, I think here she confided in Imogen, potentially said, look, if I'm not able to kill Zaden if he turns, or if I'm not able to deal with it, I need you to. Maybe she even said then, like, you know, if I've got to kill him or if something's going to happen to him, I want you to erase my memories. So that could also be what she's referring to, like Imogen saying, like, I'm doing what you asked me to a few hours ago, but also what you asked me to months ago, when you confided in me and you asked me to help you deal with it, basically. 6 missing eggs. So this is clearly Zaden, Bodhi and Garrick. I think they've stolen the eggs. Garrick can then help them get to places quick because of his distance wielding. And yeah, I think they've stolen the eggs for a purpose. Potentially here they're taking it to Queen of Umbriel to get their alliance, because she said she wanted a dragon egg of each breed. 6 eggs are missing. How many breeds are there that they have access to in the Vale, in the hatching grounds? 6, because obviously they don't have an Irid egg. So I think they've taken the eggs to strike up a deal with Umbriel to get a bigger army, just to get them on their side. I also actually saw a theory somewhere that potentially the dragon eggs and the dragon egg shells could help make a cure. Because someone said that basically in Iron Flame, someone remembered that there was the mention of eggshells being used for powering alloys. So they're clearly very powerful, very magical. So potentially they're going to figure out a way to use them. They're going to be needed in some way to help create a cure for venin. Maybe they need an Irid one as well, though. Maybe they need 7. So they've got to go and try and find an Irid one. But they've taken 6. They have 6 eggs. They can strike up a deal with Umbriel. But potentially the deal they've made with Umbriel is, here are the eggs, but when they hatch, we need the shells back. We need some of the shells, and they're going to go and find an Irid one as well, and then they need that to make a cure, maybe. But I think they've stolen the eggs, but they have a good reason to. It's to potentially strike up a deal. That whole stealing the eggs is going to have a few purposes, but I think that is Zaden, Bodhi and Garrick. They're missing because they are, you know, hatching, excuse the pun, a plan. But the fact they've got 6 eggs missing, there's 6 breeds there, and the queen literally asked for an egg from each breed to help them. I think that makes sense. Also, going back to the start of that last chapter when Andana says, I will not let them burn you. There's been an excerpt at the top of one of the chapters, I can't remember what book it was, but I found it saying that basically a rider, if they commit high treason or break the codex, they are burnt. And then Andana says, I will not let them burn you. So I think basically in this time, Violet and the gang have broken the codex, have committed high treason. Potentially she was in on stealing the eggs, and that stuff they've done has been high treason or against the codex, which is what Andana's referring to here. I won't let them burn you. You've just gone against the codex, so technically they're going to burn you, but I won't let them. And that's then also why the Imogen's erased her memories, so that she can't be caught out on that, and they can't, but they won't have any proof because they can't use a truth sayer or anything on her because she can't remember. Potentially, the reason why Zaden might be able to stay with Bodhi and Garrick and not have to go into hiding, I think they've gone, Umbriel doesn't have magic, which is a bit of a weird thing as well, actually, I guess, as to why they take eggs there, because surely the eggs wouldn't be able to hatch there because there's no magic, but potentially they've thought of like a way they can get around that. Maybe Sgaeyl and Tairn are helping them and are saying like, we'll help you hide it in the Vale, or we'll help you hide it like in a magical ground or something, like we'll help you do that. So they're gonna help hatch them to then give the dragons to Umbriel. And potentially as well, Zaden said like, you can have these as well if you let me stay. Because if Zaden stays there, he won't be able to channel. Yes, he's much more venin, but if he stays somewhere where there's no magic, he won't risk channeling further, losing that last bit of his soul if it is still vulnerable, and he won't have the risk of really hurting people as much because he can't access power. He can't access power, so he can't use it to hurt people. So potentially he said to them, look, like, we'll give you the dragons, we'll hatch them for you, we'll give them to you, but we need to keep the eggshells, potentially, for whatever, if that's going to help make a cure, and you have to house me, you have to host me, and like lock me up, basically lock me up here. He might have literally said that, like, I need you to take me prisoner. I need you to lock me up so that I can't get out. I also can't access magic because there's no magic here. I need you to do that. I could so imagine that. Actually, also quite interesting. Why wouldn't Brennan be in on it? They would have needed Brennan potentially to heal them and stuff. So why wouldn't they have confided in Brennan? People that have known from the start, Imogen knows she's in on it. Bodhi and Garrick know they'll be in on it. They're the ones missing. The other person who we think knows, Brennan. Why would they not have confided in him? Violet trusts Brennan completely. So why would she not have confided in him? It would be very helpful to have a healer in on this. So why not? It could potentially be because they think it's the best for Tairn and stuff. But I don't know. I think it's weird they wouldn't, especially because Brennan does know that Zaden's turned, all that sort of thing, and they've confided in him before. So why wouldn't they have? Why wouldn't they have confided in him now? Why is he asking so intently, like, well, do you know where Zaden is? All of this. And that's why I think it's because he's turned, and that's why he's not in on the situation. Why he's so desperate to know where Zaden is, because he's like, he knows that I've turned. Why Brennan's like, you don't remember, to Violet, because he's worried, like, you should know, or trying to figure out if anyone's told her that he's turned. So that's why he's like, you sure you don't know? Because he wants to, you know, figure that out. I think he's turned, but it's just not clear yet. But I think Violet might notice and be like, his eyes seem a slightly different shade of amber or something like that. But yes, I think it's weird that Brennan isn't in on it and that he's like, we need to find Zaden, he's killed them. Like, why has he suddenly got this, like, really polarising opinion on him when he's been helping Zaden before? Which is why I think it's because he's turned and he's trying to protect himself. I also think, actually, he might be like, where's Zaden? Because he wants, if Berwin is Naolin, Brennan's like, I want to know where Zaden is because I know Naolin will be there too. Because I reckon Brennan turned because he saw Naolin, was like, oh my God, I can be reunited with him. But then Naolin's left. He's like, and Brennan's like, what the hell? I've just turned for you. And he's just left. But Theophany, I've mentioned this already, Theophany said, venin don't feel love. They don't feel love the same way. And if Naolin now, he's full-fledged venin, he's a sage, he's a proper venin, so he won't feel love properly. So I think, yeah, Brennan's turned, but Naolin's gone, basically. He's not really him anymore. He doesn't have that ability to love, so he's probably like, oh, cool, bye, and gone. And so Brennan's probably like, what the hell? Like, I've just turned to be with you and you've gone. And so maybe that's why he's like, where's Zaden? I need Zaden. I need to know where he is. And he's so angry because he's just turned for the love of his life and he's run away and he wants to find Zaden, maybe in a bit of revenge, but also he's like, well, if I find Zaden, Naolin / Berwin will also be there because he's his mentor. So I think that could be another reason of why he's so like, where is he? That sort of thing. I just think it makes a lot of sense. But then so another big thing we have here is that Violet then tries to access a bond. Tairn is asleep, says he's foggy with sleep. And Dana says he needs a whole cycle of rest. So Tarn's clearly been involved in some way and has had to exert his power. So what's he done here? He's clearly done something pivotal. Potentially had to use his power to save Violet, to create the bond of the souls, or maybe one of the theories is that Tairn and Sgaeyl have had to sever their bond. Because Violet tries to access the bond with Zaden, she goes, he's not there. She says it could be from distance, but we're not sure. We don't know if the bond's gone or if it's just because he's far away. So a lot of people think that the bond is gone and that basically Sgaeyl and Tairn had to break their bond in order to protect each other and protect Zaden and Violet. Zaden has to go off and do something and Violet can't know where he is and can't talk to him. That would ruin it all. That's why Sgaeyl's like, you know, he's never going to agree to it, all of this. He does in the end, potentially to protect Violet, is they've had to sever, and also maybe for Sgaeyl. Sgaeyl might say to Tairn, look, I need you to do this so I can save my rider. Like, you know, we know that dragons can rebond. Leothan says to Andana, you can come back and reforge the bond. So potentially it's like, right, they've had to sever it so that Sgaeyl and Tairn can be apart for an amount of time. Because if Zaden's off doing something that's really far away, that's going to hurt Tairn and Sgaeyl. So potentially they've had to sever their bond so that they can be apart from each other, so that Sgaeyl and Zaden can do what they need to, and also to stop Violet going after Zaden. And that's why he needs a whole cycle of rest. It's exerted so much power and it would have drained him and also would have hurt him extremely to have broken that bond. So that's why he needs a whole cycle of rest. And with the reforging the bond, we know that can happen because that's literally been mentioned. So maybe that's another reason why that was brought into this book about bonds breaking and being reforged, is because that's going to become relevant again. So Sgaeyl and Tairn will reforge their bond. Even if it's only an irid thing, something only like Andana's species can do, Andana's back. So she could do it. She might have the ability to reform their Sgaeyl and Tairn's bond for them. That makes a lot of sense. And we have Andana back. She was gone for not very long. So I'm intrigued to know, like, why was she gone for so short? I'm glad she's back, but like, why was it so short? What did she learn? What's happened? Why did she come back when she did? I want to know. I want to know all of that. I'm intrigued. And then the last bit really here to unpick is the note from Zaden. He says, don't look for me. So again, this is why I think Violet can't look for him. It would ruin the plans. Again, another reason why her memory had to be removed. And then he says, it's yours now. So what's it's? The assumption here is that it's Tyrandor. Like, they're married, so she's now the heir because if Bodhi's not there. So it's like, right, it's yours now. Tyrandor's yours. But Tyrandor, throughout the book, Zaden and everyone really has been referring to Tyrandor as she. And here he's saying it's. So the thought here is that it's his soul. It's yours now. Here, he's referring to his soul. Because earlier on in the book as well, he says about it's yours, like, you know, that bit of my soul, it's yours. My soul is yours, like it belongs to you. He says that. So I think here that it is referring to his soul. He's got one bit of his soul left now, and it's yours. It's Violet's. It belongs to her. And the reason why it's yours now, especially, is because they're married. It's yours now, it does feel like it's referencing the marriage. And that's why it's like, well, maybe it was them marrying, merged their souls, basically meant that Violet's basically now the protector of that last bit of his soul. Hence, it's yours now. It belongs to you. We've married. I've basically given you this last bit of my soul to look after, so that hopefully I can come back to you. But in order for that to happen, you can't go looking for me. So hence, don't look for me. It's yours now. My last bit of my soul is yours to keep, to look after, and hopefully he will come back to her. And one other just random theory I've had is how then right at the end we have I Did What You Asked Me To by Imogen. Also interesting, Imogen ends the book, and she also is right at the start. In literally the first chapter, Violet's like, I need Imogen. And then right at the end, she's there again. So Imogen's so pivotal here with this. And I think she's going to be even more pivotal. But a thought I had, so I thought, how is she going to get her memory back? A lot of the next book is clearly going to be Violet trying to piece together things, figure out what's missing. But I did have a thought. I wonder, Bodhi can counter signets. So what if he can counter the memory erasing? How would he counter memory? Maybe he would counter it as she's using it. He could stop her from erasing a memory. But what if he can counter it and actually reverse it and bring back a memory? And so that's why Bodhi's gone, because he can't be around because Violet might figure it out and try and get him to bring her memory back. Also, Zaden needs his help. You know, Bodhi and Garrick are two of the only people that Zaden can trust, so he needs them to help him. Again, so weird that the only person who's known basically the whole time and isn't involved is Brennan, which is why I think he's turned. Anyway, but yeah, so I wonder if maybe Bodhi, he'll come back later and he will reverse the memory thing. He'll be able to counter it and reverse it so that she remembers. I can imagine that. That is the unpicking of the end of Onyx Storm. It was an absolute whirlwind. Reading it, I was like, oh my God. And I was so confused. When I finished the last page, I had no clue. I was so confused. I just had to take my time, reread it, actually like literally properly think through what was happening. Rebecca Yarros is brilliant. I think there's going to be so many things we haven't thought of. I think she's going to throw in so many like, oh my God, like it'll make sense when we read it, but we just won't have thought of it. But yeah, I'm so excited to see what's going to happen, to see what all of this means. When I read the last page, I went through so many emotions. When I saw they got married, I was at first so annoyed. I was like, oh my God, we've been deprived of their wedding scene. Then I was like, oh my God, they're married. Then I was like, oh my God, they're married, but Violet wasn't, you know, it wasn't her choice. I thought Zaden had done it without telling her. I was like, oh my God, she's just, you know, had this lovely moment stolen from her. And then you asked me to remove a memory. It's like, oh my God, she did know about it. She would have agreed to it happening. They'd have had potentially the romance involved with it. That's so nice, but we were deprived of it and she's forgotten it. Like, I went through all the emotions. So excited for the next book, but I do think it's going to be so long. I think we won't probably get the next book until 2027, which is crazy. The wait for this one felt long enough, so I'm sure it'll be worth the wait. And I'm so excited. And we'll have the TV series. We've still got so much more fourth wing content to come. I have so many theories that either I already had and this book has like supported and grown even more, or that I've got theories that have come out from this. So there'll be loads more videos coming with all those theories. So make sure that you are subscribed and have notifications on so you don't miss them. That was my unpicking and digesting of properly going through the meaning of the end of Onyx Storm, what happened at the end of Onyx Storm. Let me know your thoughts. Is there anything that you think I've missed? Any other things you think like can be picked out? Let me know in the comments and let me know what theories you have. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you enjoyed this video, I'd be so grateful if you smash a big thumbs up. It would mean the absolute world. I'll catch you in the next video, guys. Thanks so much and I'll see you soon.